Now, this video I'm shooting to talk about the second element of fortitude. So one element of fortitude is courage. The second element of fortitude is nobility. Courage is about doing what is reasonable even when you don't feel like it, right? Commitment. This is not an emotion. It's an activity. So it's not a passivity. It's not an affect. It's not something that comes over you. This is a decision you make. It's taking ownership for your behavior, for your choices, for the way that you go about. This is one of the ways that you can master your moods or take ownership for your Befindlichkeit. Okay, the second element of fortitude is nobility. Now, nobility is joining others to you in friendship, making friends, right? Now, this is a little bit more complicated than what it just sounds like trying to make others your friends. Most of the time, we all live with crazy people. We are one of those crazy people. Pride rules in everybody's lives. So when you live with people who are difficult to live with, how should you respond when they take you for granted, when they are inconsiderate, when they are unkind, when they are mean or angry or irrational, right? What is the best or most reasonable thing for you to do? Now, this becomes difficult, so I'm going to try to couch this in a larger conversation. Spinoza, sometimes you might think he's telling you you should always just be walked all over, right? That you should always be kind, that you should always be, timid and something like that. And that is not at all the case, right? It isn't always the case that you should also be assertive and strong and everything else. But to think that the alternative to that is to be weak is not really what Spinoza would call nobility either. So fortitude is the ability to be strong, to have a fort, is to have a stable a place of protection or a place of safety, right? So one way that you can be stable or have a place of safety is through courage, doing what is reasonable even when you don't feel like it. Another way is through nobility, and this is to help you to know how to navigate through living with crazy people. It is most likely the case that everybody that you live with, everybody that I live with, is a little bit proud, including yourself. And what that means is they will take you for granted. They will use you. They won't realize it. They will be mean in ways that they don't think they're being mean. They will undervalue your contribution to their lives, and they will overvalue their own, as you do with them. And this is why we become annoying to each other, right? And so life with other people is going to be like this, right? Highs and lows, highs and lows. And you won't get to control those highs or lows. You will not have a place of safety in all of this highs and lows. If you are passive, you just go like this too. And they have to live with your highs and lows. And your highs and lows, they sometimes clash. And this is why we get annoyed with one another, right? Because our highs and lows run into one another. Spinoza's answer to that is that the reasonable approach to living with people, you might think it would be reasonable to get out of everybody's life. Just limit your exposure to crazy people. There are moments when that is necessary. If you live in an abusive situation where you're truly living with people who are cruel, who are mean, who are vindictive, who are vengeful, who are abusive, at some point, a reasonable person will say, I don't need this in my life. This is not an appropriate way to be living life. If you're living constantly in fear, you need to take reasonable steps to get out of that. You do not need to put up with that. That is not reasonable. So every relationship you have with people has a price to pay. Most of the time, the price you pay to live with people is, on all things taken into account, worth it. Even though people are crazy, even though people are unreasonable, even though people are proud, they also make your life better in all kinds of important ways, so that it's worth the price to pay to live with them. But you need to recognize that you are paying a price to live with people. Everybody has a price to pay to live with them. And you have to gauge whether it's a reasonable price. Now, when someone is abusive and they cause you fear and you can't live happily or contently, if you cannot find a place of safety where you live, you owe it to yourself through reason to change your situation, whatever it takes. You might have to pay a heavy price to get those people out of your life, but you have to do it if it's reasonable. So there are some people, it's just not worth it. The price is not worth it. And in those cases, you need to let them go, right? I think there are probably some parents who have children who are drug addicts or who are abusive, who are angry, who are, like they do elder abuse. Look, a parent does not owe it to their child to put up with that kind of craziness. And they need to be reasonable to protect themselves. So Spinoza absolutely would require courage in those situations to do what is reasonable, even if it comes at great price. But we're talking now, when we talk about nobility, about average everyday kinds of relationships, not the heavily abusive and the ones that create intense kinds of fear and insecurity. How can you live with people who are in an average everyday, proud and annoying occasionally, right? Whose interests sometimes conflict with your own, who are sometimes difficult, and they have a price to pay, but the price isn't that bad. So when you're willing to pay the price, that doesn't mean you have to live like this. You can pay the price by living with others without losing your sense of peace or contentment. And nobility is the way that you do that. So nobility is, by definition, to repay hatred with love. Courage, by definition, is to do what is reasonable even when you don't feel like it. Nobility is always repay hatred with love. Now, what does that mean? Now, remember, hatred is pain that is going from a greater state of perfection or satisfaction to a lesser state of satisfaction. So we might understand that like this. My wife says to me, "Take me to the hospital." And I think this is making me go from what I'm doing right now is very satisfying to driving in the car not satisfying. I don't want to do it. So I'm going from a greater sense of satisfaction to a lesser sense of satisfaction. This is pain. How do I feel? I feel hatred. This makes me feel angry. So what do I do if I'm being noble and I feel hatred? Now, it doesn't mean she's trying to hate me. She's not trying to be a source of hatred. Hatred is something I'm feeling because of what she's asked me to do. This is not on her, this is me, right? But how do I deal with this hatred? I turn it to love. The only thing that is noble is to repay hatred with love. She has caused me pain. Oh, I hate that. How do I repay that hatred? Well, what I did, as I told you in the last video, I repaid it with hatred, right? I gave back anger. If I give back anger to someone who is proud and angry, or easily angered, who's easily offended, then what's she going to give me back? More anger. So if I give in to the anger and I repay hatred with hatred, I fight fire with fire, what is going to happen to me? I'm going to pay a price for that. Right? It's going to come back on me because hatred, if I give her anger back, then I'm a source of pain to her. And if I'm a source of pain to her, how does she feel to me? She hates me. And when she hates me, what's she going to do? She's going to feel anger. And when she feels anger, what's she going to do? She's going to take revenge. So I'm going to get it. Somehow I'm going to pay for my anger. It's not reasonable. Because if she makes me mad back and I give in to that emotion, then what am I going to do to her? And suddenly we start building a snowball effect, an avalanche builds, and it ends in divorce. Because it gets out of control. And the anger gives into anger, that gives into anger, that gives into anger. Somewhere there has to be a repair mechanism. And if there isn't a repair mechanism, then you just destroy relationships. And all of the good that's there gets hidden by all of the anger and the hatred and the passive emotions. So somewhere someone has to become noble. And they have to stop the cycle of hatred, and they have to repay hatred with love. And all that requires is, instead of being a source of pain, you have to be a source of pleasure. And if you can't find a way to be a source of pleasure, then you're in trouble. So the noble person, when they feel pain, tries to repay it by repairing, making the pain stop and becoming a source of pleasure. Now, how do you do that? I'll tell you what I did yesterday. I don't know that it was exactly ideal, but after a moment of quietness, just calm down for a second, I realized this was not in my best interest. I could see Spinoza running through my mind, and I was like, dang it, I should have gone the extra mile. I remembered my rule, and then I realized I needed to repay. I needed to be noble. I need to repay this hatred with love. I need to repair, right? So the repair mechanism that I used was simply to say, listen, sweetheart, I really love you, and I'm sorry. I'm wrong. I love you, and I love our baby, and I want the best for this child. And I would feel really small and terrible if on the off chance something goes wrong here. So please forgive me for being such a jerk. You're right. I'm a jerk. And I don't want to be, because I love you. And I had to let that sink in. And of course, she still took it out on me. You are a jerk. You were really mean. I'm really scared here. And you have been terrible to me. And what an awful person you are. And later that night, again, when we brought this up again, right, I still had to pay for it. And it was true. And I deserved it. I deserved it. I was a jerk. So when she brought it up again at night, I said again, but now I was a little more prepared for it. And I could be really sincere about it. And I could say, listen, you're right, sweetheart. I need to work on being more compassionate. I need to work on understanding your pain and feeling it better. I need to be better at this, and I will work on it, and I'm sorry. And you're right. Now that is a way of trying to repair the damage that I started. But if I don't start it, doesn't matter. You still got to find a way to repair. That's what the noble person does. Now, Spinoza says it this way. The noble person tries to join others to him or to her in friendship. And what that means is you repay hatred with love. Or whenever there is pain in a relationship between two people, the noble person tries to repair it. Even if it's not your fault, to be truly noble is the one to step up and offer repair. That's true nobility, and it's reasonable. It's in my own best interest to be noble. Because the more that I'm a source of pleasure to you or to others in my life, the more they're likely to be nice to me. The more they're likely to help me when I need it. The less they're going to hurt me. But if I'm a source of pain to others, then they're going to keep being a pain to me because they're going to get me back. And you know they're always going to get you back more than you think you deserve because of pride. The noble person stops the cycle of pain by repairing the relationship, by finding a way to satisfy the need for anger and revenge. To repay hatred with love is the most powerful activity a reasonable person will take in relationships to other people. You will always look for opportunities to repair as chances to create friendships. And friendships are always worth having. They're very difficult to maintain. Some people are not worth the price, because to be noble in the face of really mean, really vindictive, really abusive people is too much work. And when it's too much work, you got to get out. Or they got to get out. Because life is not worth living with people who are too much work. Where all the time your attempts to be noble fail, then you're in trouble in that relationship, and it's too high a price to pay. And I don't know where that is for everybody, but when relationships are abusive, that's where nobility breaks down, and you cannot join to someone in friendship who takes too much, because it will destroy you. And a noble person then walks away. True nobility, though, is the effort to sincerely make friends and to repay hatred with love. 15 minutes on this one, a little bit long, but I hope it's worth it. All right, talk to you later.